Welcome to Moto Talk. We have a special guest today. First, we'd like to thank JTA Yacht Delivery for sponsoring the show. Today's guest, AMA National Champion, one of the biggest pioneers of the sport of motocross, the designer and builder of the Daytona Supercross for over 30 years, the first American to ever beat the Europeans in motocross racing, father of AMA motocross and supercross champion David Bailey, and one of the most renowned instructors of motocross racing and off-road riding techniques in the world, the professor, Gary Bailey. Welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you. It's an honor to be here, man. I appreciate you asking.
So I've known Gary for many, many years. I went to my first Gary Bailey motocross school back when I was on a 65. And Gary pretty much taught me everything I know about how to ride. And I love passing on what I've learned to the up and comers. Most of the kids now are getting a dirt bike when they're 3, 4 years old. You got a dirt bike when you were 13. How did you get into riding?
Well, first of all, let's talk about 13 and why. Remember back in that day, they were 4-strokes, and we were riding the big old Triumphs and, things that weighed 450 pounds. And there wasn't very many kids at 10, 11, 12, 9, 8 years old signing up to ride a 650 Triumph. In fact, if they were, it probably wasn't a good idea. The way I got into it is my grandfather. He used to ride. In fact, he used to run a lot of cross country, like desert races and long distance races. And even when he first started, he was actually in some of the circuses and did that motor drome around and did tricks and stuff like that. That was his big thing. Then when he came to California, he started racing some board track races. And so he was around a long time, had a motorcycle shop. So obviously hanging around a motorcycle shop, you kind of get the want to do that.
See someone that's doing it and we want to do it.
Mini bikes back then were some kind of a frame that somebody configured with a couple of wheels and handlebars. And basically you had a Briggs and Stratton lawnmower motor strapped to it. And we thought that was pretty cool. So it's nothing like mini bikes today, for sure.
Oh, now they have electric ones. So
there's no telling what they're going to be doing, man. It's like, I would have never thought back when I started riding. I couldn't even imagine the bikes that they have today. Obviously I've been there the whole time, which is kind of cool, and see how it's all evolved. But boy, never would have thought back when I started riding it'd ever be what it is today.
I had a funny story I was reading, Gary. You are one of the most renowned coaches in the world. You've worked with guys like TRAVIS Pastrana, your son David Bailey. He's won numerous championships. Everyone knows Ricky Carmichael, the most winningest rider of all time. I mean, the list goes on. The Alessis, Millsaps, Barsha, Osborne, Cooper Webb, myself. We had Shea Bentley on the show. You worked with Shea Bentley.
Yeah.
Pretty much every rider you've touched with the riding skills. And it's crazy how you got into it. You said someone was supposed to be teaching a school and they couldn't show up, and you were just there to fill in.
Yeah, I was in Ohio for an Interam race, and it was somebody come knocking on my door. The promoter did, and he said, "Hey, I got an issue," because he knew me and he knew the success that I had back on the West Coast. And he said, "How would you like to help me out? I got a problem. A couple of Europeans. We're going to do a motocross school tomorrow, and I got about 20 some guys signed up, and we don't have a teacher." And I said, "Whoa, teacher? Well, I've never done that before." So I said, "I've attempted a lot of things, but I said, all I can do is go out there. I'll go out there and do the best I can do." And he said, "Man, just do something. Make these people happy. They've come a ways and are expecting this." So the riders showed up, and I come walking up and I go, well, I'd like to introduce myself. You don't know who I am. And I told him, and, you know, I've had some pretty good success in motocross, particularly on the West Coast and all. I said, so here's what I want to do, because I've never done a school before. I got kind of asked to do this at the last minute. So I said, how about I go out there and we'll take each little section and I'll do some starts, and then you can ask me some questions about what I do, and then I'll watch you guys a few times and I'll let you know what I see and what changes we can make. And so we kind of did a little bit of time at the start gate, and then we moved on around the track just a little bit. And I just took as many sections as we could possibly do in the time we had for that day. And when we got all done at the end of the day, everybody was raving about it. They go, dude, that was the best. I learned so much. That was the best thing ever. And I'm like, really? Well, that's kind of cool. And I really enjoyed it. Just seeing the improvement of the guys and the changes. So that's kind of how it all come about. And I got back to California after running the whole series, going across the United States. And I said, gee, you know, it'd be a lot more fun. Oh, by the way, I was working 10 years in a grocery store before that. And I said, it'd be a lot more fun doing this than working in a grocery store. So I sent notice to my boss that let me have 3 months off and go, by the way, I'm not coming back. And he's like, what? I guess, no, I'm not coming back. I'm gonna do some teaching and some racing and see if I can make a living at that. So that's kind of how it all started.
I love that story. That's kind of how I didn't plan on teaching. And as soon as I got a driver's license, I had this vet rider ask me to come to the track and work with them a little bit. I go, all right, I guess I can do that. I can try to teach you what Gary taught me.
Yeah.
And then I'm still doing it, and you're still doing it. You've been doing it for way longer than me, for over 40 years. How many years have you been coaching, Gary?
Way longer than you are old, my friend. I've been doing this for going on 60 years now.
60 years of working
Yeah,
with riders.
63, I think.
That's a lot of riders over the years.
I had so many riders that I mean, when I was doing my camps and here in Virginia, I'd schedule, 10 schools for the year, and they were just filled up. And I was very dedicated to the riders. I was very concerned whether they learned or they didn't learn. I was straightforward with them from the start when I had a big group, and you went to a few of them, and I just like, look, if you're here to ride, you're in the wrong place. If you're here to learn, you're in the right place. And I said, don't expect me to be patting you on the back because you're great, because guess what? At this, I've seen the best riders in the world. I've worked with a few of them, okay? So if you're thinking you're going to impress me, you might as well get that out of your head, because I doubt that you are going to impress me. So that's kind of how I laid it out. So if you want to learn, you're in the right place. Otherwise, feel free to get your money and go, but it's not going to be a cakewalk.
Well, let's go back to when you were 13 and you were on a dirt bike and you got on this big heavy.
Actually, I started out on a 200 Triumph Cub, because they did have the smaller bikes, a few of them. So mine was a 200 Triumph Cub, which again was a 4-stroke. Interesting, it went 4-stroke, 2-stroke, 4-stroke, but we'll get into that.
So you're 13, you're riding a big, heavy, no suspension, 4-stroke motorcycle. What made you do it? What made you, you were around it a little bit, but why did you want to do it? What was so cool about out there riding a dirt bike?
My brother was a year and a half older than me, and he started racing about a year and a half before I did. And I was just like, man, this is just something I want to do. It looks like fun. I tried the team sport things, and it's like, dude, I can't really show what I got. I mean, nobody knows how good I am. If the rest of the guys are a fail, then it doesn't show too much. So I'm going, I want to do something that's individual, and because my grandfather and my brother lined up for a big 150-mile desert race one day, and I'm standing there going, man, I got to do this. This is this watching thing ain't for me. And I'm going to learn it. But I was pretty fortunate, because at 13 years old, I was a big kid. I was already like 6 foot. And so it was easy for me to transition over, where, even with the bigger bikes, if you were a smaller guy, it was a little difficult for you to do that. And there were no classes. Basically, there was a 200cc class, expert, and an amateur class. And all the guys I was racing with were like crap, I don't know, 40 years old. Some of them, they're 50 and 40 and 30 years old. Nobody was racing that was my age. So I was basically racing against a bunch of the big guys.
And I remember you telling me, or telling the group or one of the classes that you'd race every class. It wasn't uncommon that you'd have a few bikes, 3, 4, 5 bikes, and you would race every class that you could at the track.
Well, not only that, I raced, I mean, I just like riding so much that anytime there was an opportunity I could ride. I got some nicknames, obviously the professor. I was also called the Iron Man for a while. And that was because I did show up, and I'd show up with 3 bikes. I'd ride 3 classes. Now people listen to that go, yeah, well, we do that today anyway. And I go, no, you don't. Let me tell you what it was. Okay. There was an amateur class and an expert class. There was a 125 class, a 100, a 125, a 250, and a 500 open class. 500 open class. Okay. So basically the amateurs run 15-minute motos, and the expert guys, which I was running the expert class, we run 20-minute motos. So I want you to understand this. The only break I had was between the finish of this race, the amateurs run, and I'm back on the track again. So every 30 minutes I was back on the track again and running another 20-minute moto. So basically, if you can do the math, each class, 3 20-minute motos. So each class, I'm riding an hour with that bike. I'm riding an hour with the other bike, and I'm riding an hour with the other bike, plus the practice we had. So I'm basically riding right at 3.5 to 4 hours in a day. What was great, a lot of times I won all 3 of them, which was really cool. But just battling up in the front, I just like doing it. And I never trained because I worked in a grocery store, and I unloaded 40-foot semis all day long by hand. We didn't have forklifts then. So I'd unload all these groceries and stuff by hand. So that was pretty much training. That was a good workout every day, unloading those things. And so I just like riding. And then I got the opportunity. There was about 20 minutes from the house, they were running a Wednesday night short track program. So man, I jumped on that, took a couple of bikes over there, and I'd run the small bike class, the big bike class. And then they started running not only a short track, but they run a short track with a little TT inside of it. So I got the opportunity to actually run like 4 different races that night. Plus, there was always a trophy dash, which 4 of the heat races, the 4 fastest guys got to do a trophy dash. So I'd get up there. I mean, sometimes I'd bring home 6 trophies in a night. And the cool thing was, because I didn't have a lot of money, I mean, I was like buying most of my stuff. I finally ended up getting a sponsor from Greaves because I was doing well. But I started making a deal with all the promoters to go, hey, can we make a deal, whatever the trophies cost you, can you buy them back from me? And I'd use that money to get me to the fuel and my entry fee for the next race. So basically I was just turning over trophies, unless it was a really, really big race, and I'd save some of those. So I was just turning over trophies just to keep me going, because otherwise, I mean, I couldn't afford to do something like that. Just Joe Blow working my butt off 6 days a week and bringing home $128. So things were different back then.
That's an awesome story. So you'd win a trophy, and then you'd sell it back to them for the next race, and that'd be your race money to get back next weekend.
Yeah. Awesome. So then some weeks I would run the Wednesday night. I almost always run the Wednesday night because I like going to that one. On occasionally there was another short track race, probably about 45 minutes to an hour south of where I was, and they would have a night program there. So sometimes I run Wednesday night, I run Thursday night. At Elsinore, they used to have a big TT track, and I'd go there and run Saturday night, and then wherever the race was on Sunday, I'd go to the race there. So sometimes I was able to race like 4 times a week, and always 2 bikes, and sometimes 3. And on a few occasions, I'd show up with 4 bikes because I go, all right, every single class there is. So it was fun. It was fun.
It sounds like you love it just as much as all of us. And that's why we're all here, and that's why we all go race.
Yeah, we talk about love it, and I grew up in the best time. Was before motocross, but even when motocross started, it was such a different vibe because everybody was there. There was no money per se, so you didn't race for the money. If you were there racing, you were racing for a trophy. And trophies weren't easy to come by. When I first started, when I was riding my Triumph Cub, they paid one trophy for every 10 riders. Do you know how I felt when I got like 9th place in a race and I'm going, maybe I'll get a 2nd place? And I go, no, it's for every 10 riders. It has to be 11 riders to pay 2 trophies. And I'm like, are you kidding me? No, that's the way it is. So, today I feel trophies are too free. They just give them out. It's almost like participation trophies. And to me, a participation trophy is like, what are we teaching people when you give them a participation trophy? It's not a trophy. Just for being there, you get a trophy. It's like, that's just wrong. You should actually really have to earn the trophy. Everybody wants a trophy, but I don't know. Maybe I think about it different than a lot of people do, but I just feel like you should work a little harder and they shouldn't just be handing them out.
I think you're right. You got to work for it. Makes you want to work harder for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
The guys going to Loretta Lynn's, you've been there numerous times. You raced there. You got some championships.
I got to race there and I got to win there, man. Racing there was cool. Winning there was even way cooler. Yeah. A lot of fun. I mean, I was like, it's crazy because somebody asked me, they go, hey, what do you think about running Loretta Lynn's? And I'm like, oh, dude, I don't know, man. It's like, I haven't been racing much, but yeah, that'd be fun. So when I decided to go race Loretta Lynn's, I was riding a lot still, but I wasn't racing much. And so I said, okay, I'm going to take 1 month off, no motocross schools, no nothing. And all I'm going to do is ride every day and train every day and get myself in shape a little bit so that, because 20-minute motos, I don't care when you're running there, 20-minute motos at Loretta Lynn's with that heat and humidity, there's never an easy day there.
And you can probably guarantee one of them is going to be a wet one.
Just about. I was lucky. I was lucky because my motos all fell. I was really lucky because 2 of my motos fell early in the morning. I had I think the second moto of the day, and then I had one at 10:30, so it was still good. My last moto was at 4 o'clock. That was a brutal one.
Yeah, it gets hot. Did you go in the creek after?
Did I go to the creek? I don't know if I just passed out or just went to the creek. I'm not sure.
Could have been. You could have passed out in the creek. You don't know.
Yeah, well, I was definitely tired. I can tell you that. So.
Like I mentioned when I introduced you, when the Europeans pretty much came to the U.S. and you, I think it was the second moto of the race over there in '69, was it, or '67? Right. There's no 69, and you won. No one had beat these guys yet.
Yeah, it started here. Actually, Torsten Holman come over here in '66 for the first time. I actually have a picture of Torsten Holman when he first came. By the way, Torsten Holman was world champion at the time, and the guy was amazing. I have a picture of me and him side by side. This is funny because I have a photo of this, and we're side by side. I'm on my 650 Triumph, and he's on his 360 Husqvarna. Now, come on, 2-stroke. It's like, come on, they only like 150 to 200 pounds difference in weight, right? And this guy's world champion. But the funny thing is, we're not racing together. That was when he was lapping me, that particular picture. So, but you have a picture of me with me and Torsten Holman. So he was so fast, I was actually blown away. The next year, I was able to start riding some 2-strokes. The company Greaves, and there was another company, Montesa, and both of those distributors were both offering me bikes because I'd won a lot of races, and they'd go, yeah, if you'd like to ride my bike, come get one and let's ride, and let you ride them. And so I actually, when I got my opportunity to ride for Greaves, a guy named Nick Nicholson which was the distributor there. He said, hey, would you be interested in riding one of my bikes? And I'm like, yeah, at one of the races. And so nobody was giving bikes away. So it just didn't register to me. So I went a couple of weeks and I saw him at the races 2 weeks later, and he said, hey, you never called me. And I was like, well, to be honest with you, Nick, I can't afford to buy a bike. And he goes, no, you ain't buying nothing, dude. I'm going to sponsor you. I'm going to give you a bike to ride. And I'm like, really? He goes, yeah, you want to ride one next week? I go, yeah. So he brought a bike out there for me to ride. And that was, in fact, that was a 360 Greaves. And it was a 360 Greaves with one of those Springer front ends on it. So it was a little bit different, but it worked pretty good. And so I got to ride that and I was pumped. And then a few weeks later, he said, would you like to have a 250 too? And I'm like, is this guy kidding me? I mean, I had never given anything. I was buying everything I was getting and, you know, and making stuff work that was probably just shouldn't have even been on the racetrack with it. And so I started riding for Greaves and I rode for them for a pretty good amount of time. And I was then doing a little bit more motocross. In fact, it was funny because we used to run scrambles, which scrambles and motocross are pretty much the same thing. In Europe, it started out as scrambles before it became motocross. Same exact thing, just all natural terrain. And, you know, however it was laid out, you just raced it. They didn't manicure anything. And I watched those guys and they were so fast. I'm just going, maybe they just blow by me. And I'm just like, what? Dude, how is this even possible? And so then one of the races then in 68 that I went to, I'm like, I had the #1 plate in California. And two of the Europeans come over to stay. One was Gunnar Lindstrom and the other one was Lars Larson. And they kind of moved to the United States to live and doing some work. And I remember the first couple of months, man, they whooped me and they whooped me and they whooped me. And dude, I'm just, I can see him, but I can't catch him. And I remember the first time I beat Lars Larson, dude, I thought I won the world championship because it was like, oh my God, I finally beat this Swede. This is so cool. And then I started learning, but I paid a lot of attention to what they were doing and where they were beating me and tried to put that into my training program to figure out how do you go that fast and not be scared to death? You know, particularly on some of the things we were riding, they didn't have suspension like today. But these guys just knew how to make it work. And I kept learning and learning and learning. So then they had this international Firecracker race at Saddleback Park in California. And I went there and I was like, okay, I think I'm ready for these guys. I think I'm ready for them. So the race started and I got a decent start. A couple guys out in front of me. And at the time there was actually two world championships, two world champions in that race. And then there was 2 or 3 other Europeans that were, you know, lesser than those guys. And so the first moto I got third and I was kind of like bummed about it. And I was like, man, how do I go faster than that? So we get to the last moto and I'll tell you at the end what the deal was. I didn't even know it. So I get a good start. I'm running in third place. And both the Europeans in front of me, it was a real muddy section and they both went down. And I went by him and I'm like, dude, I'm leading the race. This is insane. And so I'm just, you know, getting everything I got. And I was about 2 laps short from the finish. And I started getting tired. I mean, like arm pump tired, just like it was really hot that day. And I had this guy, Stig Peterson, it was right on my butt, this guy from Sweden. And there was a valley in the track went down through this valley and both sides were packed with people. And as I hit the valley, everybody's yelling, just go Bailey. And I'm like, oh crap. I'm not tired. I can't be tired anymore. I mean, it's like I'm leading this thing. And nobody's ever beat him in a moto. And I'm just hang on. He was on my butt for the next 2 laps, but he never passed me. So I was pretty pumped that I won that particular moto. And then at the end of the day, they said, oh, by the way, you won the overall. And I'm like, what? How is that possible? What I didn't know is in Grand Prix, they time each race and each rider. And then if there's a tie, which there was, they run the times together and my time was faster than theirs. So I ended up getting the overall. So the people yelling, I think, were the key to get me to get that lower time in that race, which was the big difference of winning it. So yeah, it was pretty cool. But let's compare today what you would get for winning something like that. I get $150. Woo, jump up and down, dude. It's like, yeah. But $150 then, considered at 6 days a week, and I'm getting $128 bring home pay. $150 was looking pretty good. Those were the days, and that's when it was fun. I mean, shoot, I'd drive things people don't do today. I had a '69 Ford van, and there was a race in Spokane, Washington, which anybody knows the map of California and where LA is and Spokane, Washington is. It's a 22-hour drive, hauling butt. So I'm getting ready to go, and my brother goes, "There's a big race up there, and they're paying good money." And I'm going, Dad, I'm going to this thing. I don't care how I get there. My brother goes, well, I'll go. So I load up all three of my bikes. My brother loads up his bike, the Mako. And another buddy of mine goes, hey, I want to go too. So he's going to load his Civic up. So we got 5 bikes. In fact, the one of my 125, we took the front wheel off and stood it up on end in the back of the van because there was no place to put it in there. And there was this, and I don't know if anybody's familiar with those vans. The motor on those was in between the 2 seats in the front back in that day on a Ford van. So there's 4 of us going. So we got an old door, like a hollow core door, because they were building some houses right behind my house. And I went in and grabbed one of those hollow core doors, laid it on top. So one person had to lay on top of the bikes on this thing, and one had to sit on the motor, and the other 2, we just kept rotating with it. Straight drive all the way through. Went all the way up there. We won I won all 3 of my classes. My brother got second in class behind me. My other buddy on the 250 got second in his class. And the other guy that was riding got third in his. So we took almost every bit of cash they had. And as soon as the races were over, man, we got our money. And I had to be back at work. So we turned around 22 hours back, man, back. But those were the days when we did stuff like that. And you really didn't think about it. It was just fun. It was just fun because, and that was the time that I grew up in, when it was just fun. It wasn't, winning was good, but it wasn't the whole deal. Everybody wanted to win. But today, think about this. My best competitor back in the day, if I had a flat tire and needed a wheel, he said, hey, there's one in the back of my van, go grab it and put it on there. And this would be the guy that he and I are racing for the win, because that's just what you did. You just wanted to make sure that everybody got an opportunity to race. And no matter what kind of competitor it was against you, you made sure that everybody just wanted to be happy. We had a good time. I was the first guy to ever show up in a van at a racetrack and stay overnight. And I used to have to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning to get to the race, to be able to be there early in the morning, because it was, always 2, 3, 4 hours to where we were going. And I finally got to a point where this 4 o'clock in the morning stuff, man, I'm not getting any sleep. So I had my van, I made a little bed in it. And I went to the racetrack this one night. It was at Carlsbad Raceway. And I was maybe like 10 o'clock at night when I got there, and it was dark, nobody's there. So I pull up and park over here and make my bed up and go down and go to sleep. And in the morning I wake up and it's about 7 o'clock. And all the people started pulling in and everything. And I open up my door, call my buddies, go, Dad, what time did you get here? And I go, I got here 10 o'clock last night. And they go, no, seriously. I go, yeah, look, I slept in my van, dude. They go, oh, that's so cool. So I did that a couple of weeks. Next time one of my buddy goes, hey, I'm gonna come Saturday night. Let's be there. What time are you gonna be there? I said 9, 10 o'clock. He said, I'll be there. And so maybe 3 or 4 of us started doing it. But I was the first guy to ever just go hang out and camp right at the motocross track. So I get up at 7:30, practice at 8:30, and I'm all ready to go. I didn't have to drive 4 hours to get there. So it was pretty cool.
I love that story. That should be in the Guinness Book of World Records.
Yeah. I had a lot of firsts. I mean, I was the first to do that. I was the first to write a book on motocross. I was the first American to teach motocross schools in the United States. I built the first toy hauler. And a lot of people don't know that. There was no such thing as a toy hauler. I had this trailer custom built with a garage in the back and living quarters in the front. So when you go back and look at it, that's what a toy hauler is today. I built the first one of those. I mean, there was just so many things that I just thought, hey, this would be a good idea. And I did it. And now I look back and go, man, today everybody thinks that's, the way it is. And it's like, no, it's cool to be the first to come up with something and do it. Pretty cool.
That's awesome. What else? What else was there? I know there was a couple, coming off the top of my head. What were you designed something for a bike too? I can't remember what that was. The levers, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say, put your head down. Let me see if it's on the top of your head. I'll be able to see it. Yeah, I designed a lever. I called it a pivot lever, and the idea of it was, and it took us a long time to design it, and a lot of prototypes. But what I wanted it to do is, as I got forward over the front of the bike, instead of the levers being like a little bit more flat, we run them down a little bit instead of being flat. as I stood up and went forward, the levers actually moved down with you. If you had your finger on it, it would actually move down. So you set it in your normal position that you'd want it to. And then as you got over the front of the bike more, instead of having your finger all jacked up and pushed up like this, you could actually push the lever down a little bit. And Answer Products eventually ended up making them for me. And it was called Gary Bailey Pivot Lever. And it was pretty cool. I go back and I look today as an interesting story. You're probably familiar with arc levers. Kind of fell into when they weren't doing, Answer wasn't making these anymore, and they weren't selling them. I had a patent for all of Europe and for the United States for anything that was a pivoting, moving lever. So when arc levers come up with their design and stuff, which they were close with Answer and all like that, they kind of knew the deal. And so I never put a stink up about it or said, hey, you owe me royalties or blah, 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 blah. So when I need arc levers, all I do is call and say, hey, I need a set of arc levers or two. And they send them to me because I do still own the patent. So yeah, just a lot of things. I just come up with ideas of things like, man, this would be cool. And I just kind of build them. I was the first one to build some plates for our Bultacos when the shocks were more straight up and down. I actually made some plates that were kind of like maybe sketchy looking the way we did it, but we never had them bend or fall off. And I made where the shocks would actually lay down instead of being straight up and down. So I started making getting the first opportunity we had to start rebuilding shocks because the leverage and everything becomes so much different. You had to start having progressive springs and then. And I got involved with the Monroe shocks, which they make cars and shocks and stuff. They never made motorcycle shocks. And I happened to get with a guy there that said, hey, we can make you whatever you want. And I went, seriously? And he goes, yeah, we'll sponsor you. And just tell us what you want. And we'll build some prototypes and see how they are. And if you don't like those, tell us what spring rates, tell us what you want them to do. And so that was pretty cool because I got to do that. Bultaco come up with, and it never went into production because it was too heavy and too costly. And I got some pictures of that bike. I got to ride really cool. It had a dual swing arm. There was two swing arms, and it was very progressive and traction. You almost couldn't make it like if you wanted to flat track, you could never flat track. It hooked up so good you could. I mean, maybe you could, but I think it would be tough to do. My test for it was to see how it really was because the way it was hooking up is we were testing them up in Wisconsin, and there was a big mud hole there. And I remember pulling down into the mud hole, backing down and stopping in the mud hole. And I just went, okay, normally if you go turn the throttle up like this and dump the clutch, you're just going to dig the biggest hole in life, right? And I did that, and it just picked up. It got traction, hooked up, and jumped out of the mud hole. And I was like, dude, this thing is insane. Never got a chance to race one because there was only prototypes they made. Like I said, they were so heavy. I'm sure the cost of them would have been just crazy. So, but it was a fun thing to be able to test. So, and I got to do a lot of testing. I had a contract with Goodyear for a long time. I did a lot of testing on their tires. It was good to have them for a sponsorship. And I had a shock sponsor. And I mean, I just started getting sponsors, which was really cool because like pretty much anything I needed, I had a chance where I could end up, testing them and just building whatever I wanted, basically. So that was always a lot of fun.
Who's your favorite sponsor of all time? I mean, I'd imagine that first one that gave you the bikes because it was totally unexpected. Or who's your favorite of all time?
Nick Nicholson Greaves was. Nick didn't have a lot of money, and there wasn't a lot of bikes being sold to really help. And the fact that he even just loaned me bikes, he didn't give me bikes, but he loaned them to me, and they always took care of them. And all. That was cool. But I'd really have to say, as much as I appreciate what he did, because he was the beginning of my success, it would have to be Bultaco. John Grace, that was the Bultaco distributor for the East Coast. He, funny, I was riding Greaves, I was building Daytona, and he'd contacted me about 3 weeks before Daytona and said, how would you like to ride our motorcycles? And I went, yeah, that'd be pretty cool. And I said, but man, he said, what would it take? And I go, man, I don't know. Let me think about it. So a couple of days later we talked, and this was the week before Daytona, well, it was motocross then, the track. And so I just threw some number out there that was just like off the top of my head. It's like, he ain't never going to buy this. So I just threw it out there, and he's like, okay. And I'm like, wow. So he said, what else do we need to do to sign the contract? And I said, well, I got to think about it. First, I got to call my ride guy in California, and I got to tell Nick, because he's had my back forever, man, since, you know, I started really doing something. So I called Nick and I said, Nick, I got this opportunity to ride for Bultaco, and they pretty much offered me the world for today's world. Okay. And I said, I really don't want to leave, man, because I mean, if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't even be where I'm at. He said, listen, if you have that opportunity, I can't do that for you. I'm not big enough, can't do that. And he said, so take it, just take it. So I'm like, okay. So I told them on Friday that I would, Friday morning, I told them, okay, I'll sign the contract. And so they went down to the motorcycle show down on the beach, which was at the Armory. It was the only Bultaco that was even here yet in the States. And they pulled this bike off of there, and they showed up on Saturday morning. I've never even ridden one. I've never ridden one. I have no idea what they're like. They just look cool. I know they're fast. I know some guys that was winning on them. So I'm going, I can't go wrong with it. So they show up. The guy, this John Grace, who is the main guy, he shows up with his coat and tie, as he always has on. And I'm out there working on the track. And I look over, and he and his son are over there getting the bike. Also, he's taking off his tie and his jacket, and he's got his shirt open, and he's over there working and mechanicking on the bike. And I think it was his son and somebody else was over. They were getting this bike all ready to go. And when practice started, that was the first time I ever got on the motorcycle to ride it. And it was fast. Suspension was about the same as what I was riding, but it was fast. It handled good. And I was pumped, and I won my heat race. Dude, I thought, oh man, this doesn't get any better than this. I ended up getting third in the main, but that was fine. It was the first time ever on the bike. So it was pretty cool. A lot of fun though.
Do you think that was your favorite race of all time?
Oh no, I'd have to say when I beat the Europeans, they're my favorite race of all time. But then how do you say I won 2 nationals on a Bultaco too? And how many people can say they won an AMA national? I won 2 nationals, entered 250 nationals, and won both of those. So I was like, you know, that ain't too bad. And favorite race, you know, I raced so many races, so many good times. I ran the first Mammoth Mountain ever. Mammoth Mountain, it was like, I remember getting ready to go up there, and they're talking about the course. They're not allowed to move any trees. You can't cut down a tree because it's, you know, the skier and stuff. They weren't allowed to cut down any trees. They were allowed to do a little grooming of the course. But I get a picture of me coming down between the trees and stuff, and there's boulders. There's boulders the size of my floor right here. And there's just these huge boulders, and the whole half the track until you got down to the sand part was sand with boulders. But it was like, it was such an unusual, cool race. And then I won the 1970 Elsinore Grand Prix. That was cool. It's like, you know, I don't know how you separate those, because they were all moments in time that are just, I don't even know how you pick one. They were all so different in a different way.
Yeah. And you're out there with your buddies, you know, and your friends, they were all at the track.
Yeah. Yeah. So just a fun, good time. I mean, motocross has been so good to me. I don't know how I got blessed, you know, to be able to do what I do, what I've done in the years I had in the races that I won. Somebody else could have won them just as easily. But I was dedicated. I did work hard for it. I guess that's part of the reason, but the fun times, it's, wow. I don't know what else I'd have been doing if I hadn't done that. That would have been any more fun.
we got a couple kids on here that want to ask you a few questions, Gary.
Okay, well, this is interesting.
Cavrick raced over the weekend. He won his regional on the
Okay, regional,
PW50.
okay.
Tatum and Brody, they raced over the weekend, and our buddy
Okay.
Cash, he raced over the weekend. Hey,
Cool.
you're coming off your big win at your Loretta Lynn's regional in the PW50 class, shaft
P-Dub,
drive.
P-Dub.
What kind of
Hey, let me tell you what, that, I swear to you, that is my favorite class to watch. What these kids do on P-Dubs today just blows my mind, dude. You know, whoever thought of a P-Dub even getting off the ground?
you go to Loretta's, you'll see him off the ground, right?
Oh, I know. It's like what these kids do, and it's just, you know, they're just miniature Kenny Rocks and they're a miniature Tomac. I mean, it's just like, I'm like, yeah, this kid's got all the gear. He's got the look. It's like, I love it. I love that class.
Cav is one of those little PW rippers. He's going to chase the championship this year.
Good. There you go.
First of all, Cav, congratulations on your big win. You're off to the ranch. What do you have a good question for Gary today?
Yeah.
Hey, buddy,
Hey,
talk to me.
what got you into training?
What got me into training? Well, like I said a little bit earlier ago, I was asked to do a class for a bunch of guys, and I had never done training before, and so I had the opportunity to do it. Found out that I liked it. Found out that people were learning a lot from knowledge that I had. Yeah, so just having the opportunity to do it, and people enjoying it, and then me studying more of what it takes to be faster, do better, and be safer. That's kind of like what I thrive on.
Cav, you got another question for Gary?
Yeah. Did you ever beat Jeremy McGrath before?
Well, no, I didn't, because I didn't race with Jeremy McGrath. So no, I never did beat him. I was in a little bit era before those guys. So never had a chance to race with him, but there's one that if you ever got to race with him and keep up with him, you're probably in an elite group. Cav, did you win both your motos this weekend?
Yeah. No.
Yeah, all three.
How all three of them good? How was the track? Was it muddy? Was it dry?
It was dry and very ruddy.
Dry and very muddy? Oh, ruddy. Okay. I was going to say dry and muddy. That's interesting. And ruddy, that's because they plow them up pretty good. And of course, you know, Loretta Lynn's is going to be like that. The main thing with Loretta Lynn's is, you know, don't get too crazy and be smart in the decisions that you make. And if you're not up front right off the start, be careful with the passes, because, you know, even if you're the fastest guy on the track, if you're laying down on the ground a few times, it's not going to help you to get the win. So, you know, when you're out there, just be smart, pay attention, watch the guys in front of you, and don't let one of them guys take you out. So, and you'll probably be all right.
That's some great advice. Thanks, Cavrick, for the questions. Cash is out in Denver, Colorado. He raced over the weekend. I saw some video on Instagram of Cash racing. What's up, buddy? How you doing today?
Good. Hi, Mr. Bailey.
How you doing, bud? So you raced this weekend. How did you do?
Good.
What is good? That's hey, you don't give one answer. Don't give one word answers. When somebody asks you a question, tell a little bit about it. When you get on the podium and you give one word answer and everybody's like, hey, can he talk? Don't be bashful. Don't be afraid to talk. You need to grab a microphone and get up there and talk into that thing. So how was it?
It was good.
Yeah. How was the track?
There was deep ruts and a couple of scenes were deep. I didn't clear anything. It was still good.
What are you riding? What class? What kind of bike?
46 KTM.
What size is it?
I have no idea.
Is it got a clutch or no clutch?
No clutch.
No clutch. Okay. All right. I know what you're talking about now. You want to make sure what bike you're riding there.
What lines do you have to take when it's really, really ruddy?
Yeah, on the bikes that you got to kind of select your lines a little bit. You got to make sure that you don't get in a real deep rut. And the biggest thing is, particularly a lot of times you're running on the same track as all the big bikes. All right. So if you can see a deep rut that you're coming into and you know it's a little bit deeper than you want, you got to make sure that you're on the power before you enter it, because once you enter it, if it grabs your foot pegs, and that's what happens with the bikes, the smaller bikes that you're riding, you get into the rut and it grabs the foot pegs, and then it's hard for the bike to get going forward. And once it stops, it's hard to get it moving. So, you know, kind of if you happen to get in a rut that's deeper than what you want, make sure you're on the gas going into it and stay on the gas all the way through it so that it pushes the bike through there. But if you need to, the smarter riders are generally the ones that are going to run more up front. So what you need to do is just kind of pay more attention to the racetrack and look at the ruts and know them a little bit better. Sometimes if it's a racetrack you've raced before, they're always going to kind of develop about the same when you get there for that race. So knowing the racetracks is really important. But you can't always go around all the ruts, because if you go around all the ruts, then you're the longest way around. And then somebody that can get through the ruts pretty decent is going to beat you. So, you know, basically ruts, once you get into them, just make sure you're on the gas going into them, and try, even if it's half throttle, quarter throttle, full, whatever you're comfortable with your ability, just keep the gas on all the way through and don't back out of it in the middle of it. And you're probably going to be pretty good with the ruts.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
You bet you, buddy.
That was a good question, Cash. Tatum, good job over the weekend as well. You raced, and I think you got second place. So good job.
Second and third.
Second and third. So Tatum, tell Gary.
Wait, was that second and third in the same moto?
No, they were different motos.
Oh, okay, that's good. I was wondering how you got second and third place in the moto. That's good. What class?
65 junior and then 65 open.
Good boy. And where was it that you raced?
It was at Pymatuming Whole Shot Raceway.
Okay, not familiar with that one, but name sounds good.
What do you miss the most about the old days of motocross to how it is now?
What do I miss the most? What I miss the most is it was more friendly, more family, more friendly. Everybody just was all friends. Even your competitor was a friend. Where today, sometimes, you know, maybe you get out in a race and you don't like the kid you're racing with for some reason. And it's just different today because it's a little more, not in where your level is, but in professional racing, it's so professional that you don't even hardly talk to your competitor. And we never had that because it was just, we were all there for fun. So, and the fact that back in the day it was just, I don't know, we had so much fun. The tracks were all natural terrain, which was good. And I don't know if you know what I mean by natural terrain. Today they prep tracks, they water them and they grade them and they do all that. Back when I was racing, they didn't do all that. They just basically laid a track out, maybe in a hillside somewhere. And it was just all completely natural terrain. And I really like that part. I like the natural terrain part rather than all these tracks that are completely prepped. It's different today. The bikes are different too. So, but that's the part that I miss about it.
Hey, Brody, how you doing? You raced over the weekend. You got your first win. You want to say hi to Gary?
Yeah.
What's happening, bud? Oh, wait, let's see. You got to be riding a 50.
I ride a PW 50.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. How long you been riding, bud?
For a very, very long time.
Not like a year.
What? What was that answer?
About a year.
Not like a year.
About like a year. What do you like? What do you like about racing?
I don't like jumping.
You don't like jumping?
Yeah, I do.
Oh, you do? Oh, okay. That's good. That's good. What do you not like about racing?
I just don't like the deep ruts.
Okay, I understand it. So let me tell you what you do. When I was racing and trying to get better, I always thought about what I don't like, which for you or maybe for me would be deep ruts. So when I practiced, I would always go through the deepest rut and learn how to go through it, because you know what? You're always going to have them there. You're always going to have to learn to go through them. You go to Loretta, there's going to be lots of ruts. And if you can get through ruts, and I can tell you the class that you're riding in, if you can get through the ruts pretty good, you're going to end up front most of the time, because most of them guys on little bikes cannot go through those ruts. So anytime there's something you say, I don't really like this, that's where you ought to spend your time when you're practicing, is going out and working on that, even though you don't like it, and make that more of a, well, you know what? They're not so bad. I actually like those.
Thank you.
Did your kid ever ride in a PW50?
Say again?
Did your kid ever ride in a PW50?
My kids?
Yeah.
Is that what you asked? My kids are all pretty big. They're very, very much older now. So I don't think they'd be riding a PW50. maybe some of my grandkids or my great grandkids, because they're more about your size. Even my grandkids are bigger than you. So yeah, I'm one of those old guys. I've been around a while.
Gary,
But I do like.
what did they start on, David and Mitchell?
David started on a Yamaha 80 on my pit bike. And Mitchell actually started riding one of those little Italojets. Have you ever seen one of those? That's what Mitchell started on. He was pretty cool. I always liked watching him ride on that thing. It was pretty cool.
So Brody, those are Italjet was a little 50, and Gary rode the pit bike, so David just hopped on that.
Yeah. What was fun about David and I with pit bikes, after David acquired my pit bike for racing, I got me another pit bike, which was the same thing. And we'd actually go out and race. And because obviously I was a little faster than him when he was learning, and we'd go out and just get side by side and run into each other. And I'd get in there and push him all day long. And sometimes he'd go, "Why do you keep running into the back of me?" And I go, "Why do you keep going so slow through the corner?" And so I said, "You know how to keep me from running into you? Go faster. Otherwise I'm going to keep running into the back of you." So yeah, it was fun when we both had some 80s, and I was able to still ride one even when I was a little big, but it was a lot of fun. You know what it's like to ride pit bikes. Fun.
I know you sent me, Gary, that picture of you on the pit bike, and
on that number one plate reel in that corner. You know what's funny about that? I always love doing this. And I did it. There was a couple of them I remember specifically, but people would go, "Yeah," but because they're little kids in the class, he's like on a 65 or an 85 or something. And they go, "Yeah, you can do that because you're on a 250 and you're a pro," and blah, 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 blah. And I went, "Oh, really? Okay, well, give me your bike." And I jump on your 85, and you know that picture you saw. I'm gonna go through there and just rail this corner on this 85. And everybody was like, I go, "So now what's your reason?" But I think the best one, it's Sugar Tree. One time we hit the whole front straight, we had some rollers on it, and we were working on it. And again, the dad was saying, "Yeah, but these guys are on 65s and they can't do that." I jumped on this kid's Kawasaki 65, and I went through the whoops and wheeling through the whoops. And the dad was like freaking out. 65. And I come back and I go, "So what's the problem exactly?" I didn't understand. But I love doing that because it was just fun. It was just fun to have to get up to the challenge.
Inspired me to, when I'm out there coaching, I'll hop on the kids 80 or 65, no problem. And I go, "Have you ever heard your bike sound like that?" And Dad's like, I didn't know it would make that sound.
Yeah. Well, the best thing I ever did in the schools, it was fun. Like David talks about it once in a while, and he goes, "Dad, I don't know how you did it." I'd be doing a class and tell everybody, "You got to be focused more ahead, watch what you're doing." And I would go, I don't know if I ever did it when you were taking the classes. It was around that time. It might've been leaving a little bit before. And it depended on the situation, but I think I did some when in the time when you and I were doing it. I would go in a blind section, and I would go clear out around a couple of turns, and I'd shut my bike off, and I'd say, "Okay, when I leave, guys, and I go over there, I'm gonna shut my bike off, and tell me when you're ready. I want you to take 3 bikes. I want you to park them anywhere in the racetrack you want to park them. As long as you don't block the entire racetrack. You can't turn them sideways. You got to have them pointed track-wise. You can lay one down if you want to, but I want 3 bikes out there, and I'm going to come through here, and you already seen me go through it already. So I'm going to come through here, and you're going to see the pace is going to be about the same as it was before, and I'm going to miss all 3 of those." And they're like, "Come on." So as soon as they hollered ready, I'd take off, boom, and I'd come around, and either come around a blind corner or coming up over a little jump. And as soon as I crest the top, I'm looking and I spotted where I wanted to land. And as soon as I spotted where I wanted to land, I get the bike turned and just go wide open between the bikes. And everybody's like, oh my God, dude. And David loved it because it really taught you to be defensive because you never knew what was on the other side of something. So it made you aware of all the time to always be aware. I remember this one particular track, I think it was in Wisconsin, if I'm not mistaken. We were playing this game. And I finally ended up having to put 6 bikes out there. You can put 6 bikes. You got to leave me a hole, though. You can't just block me. And the hole was a little bit of like an S turn that I had between them. And none of the guys, they go, do we have to stand here too? And I go, well, I don't know how you can hold your bike if you're not standing there. And they're like, dude, are you kidding me? I'm like, I really don't plan on hitting you, so you should be okay. Keyword should be. And I remember coming over it was actually coming around a blind corner, and I come around that corner just fully pinned. And as I was sideways, I was spotting the openings, and I got my little S turn hooking through there, boom, boom, boom. And dude, I mean, it felt so good. And everybody was like, dude, how the hell did you miss him? And I go, you pay attention, you learn, you got to be more aware. You get in a pack of riders, you got to make decisions. You got to make decisions quick. And if you're going to do it slower, then there's no advantage to it. You got to take advantage of the situation. And there's an opportunity there that's going to allow you to pick up a couple, 3 spots. So, and not end up crashing. So you got to learn to be aware. Another thing I like people to do, and one time I had this, it was kind of like, it was lucky, but I was aware. You remember Sugar Tree, how we come down off the start and we turned and we went up over there was kind of a hill there. At first, it got a little bit more of a jump going up there. And you know, the trail ride I always did in the mornings, okay?
Oh yeah.
Well, we're doing the trail ride. We're coming down. I'm leading the trail ride, and we're making this loop. And it's okay, guys. We're just going to keep making this loop a couple times. And I come around the corner. I hit the jump, and I was in there, and there was a rider laying there. And I'm like, oh my God! And the bike's laying there, and he's laying there, and I'm in the air, and I'm like, okay, I'm not going to try and stop because I got 20 riders behind me. That's going to go really bad. So my thought has always been, when you're in that situation, practice, learn wheelies. Even though I had to wheelie over the top of this guy's bike, I just went straight into a wheelie. I went over the top of the bike, wheelied over it. As soon as I got landed, I turned around, come back around the edge of the jump. Fortunately, another guy come over and kind of hit him. And by the time the 3rd or 4th rider there, I just got there waving him, so nobody else was going. And the second guy that come over, he just plowed right into him, and he crashed too. And I'm going, you guys need to learn, man. You got to be aware all the time. You never know what's going to be on the other side of anything. So that's the one thing I like, where David and I would always go out and run a cross-country race, at least one every year. And it was when he had some time off, and we'd go up here and run a cross-country race, because those trees aren't going to move. And you learn how to manipulate and go fast through that situation. I mean, Woods riders are amazing how fast you can go. You can take the best motocross rider there is, and they will not be able to keep up with those guys, because it's a different level of intensity. And people get locked into too much doing the same thing all the time, riding the same race, practicing the same things. It's like, no, you got to mix it up. You got to try, if it's your track and you're the only one out there, or you got a couple of your buddies, get everybody together and run it backwards. The jumps aren't right. There's nothing that you're going to like about it, but it teaches some new things that you've probably never encountered before. The other thing I like to do is, I hate when I see a racetrack that's one line. God, nothing frustrates me more than a racetrack that's one line, because everybody's a pretty much place follow the leader. You know, that's the safe line. That's a good spot. That's a place I've never, that's where I always jump it. So I'm comfortable there. Well, what you need to learn to do is, like, I don't care, you got a 100-foot tabletop, so that's the main line. What if you jump clear over on the right-hand side? So you know what's there. What if you jump clear on the left-hand side? The reason a lot of guys can't pass in that situation is because they won't commit, because they don't know what the guy in front of them is going to do. And even if the guy decides to not jump it and you're clear over to the right-hand side of it, it ain't going to make any difference. So, you know, you got to learn and use more lines. And then that way, when the track's starting to develop and you want to change your lines, you know where to go. You know what it's like. I think there's too much one-line racing a lot of times. I like the fact that the tracks are a little bit more maybe plowed, because they get some deep ruts in them. When they get deep ruts in them, there's the guys that don't like the deep ruts, so they start moving over there, and then they start moving over here. So now all of a sudden, because of that, we end up getting 2, 3, 4, 5 lines. But when you got a track that doesn't have those ruts, it just looks like a cow trail going around there, and that's like you should never be racing there like that.
Now, how do you get away from following someone through the line every time? You know, especially when you're younger, maybe they get locked in with, all right, well, I'm just going to follow them through there. How would you say that some advice to get the kids out of that main line? Obviously they have to if someone falls in front of them, but
if you don't practice doing it, you'll never do it. Our brains, humans, we get into a certain pattern of doing things. We get comfortable and that's what we do. And that all comes with practice. If you practice choosing different lines, what I used to do with David a lot, when he was getting pretty good, in fact, getting really good, he'd go out and do a moto and we time it. And it's pretty much, you can see the line he used and where he went. And I'd say, okay, we're going to second moto now, but here's what I'm doing in the second moto. I want you to never use the main line, and I want to see what kind of times we're going to get. You can cross it, you can do whatever you want, but you can't stay in the main line. Everything you hit's got to be a different spot. And that immediately teaches you to start being more comfortable with going in different places. And if you don't practice it, if you don't go out with that intense, like maybe you just go out for a practice day and you don't do that, then what do you accomplish? What do you accomplish going out there and doing the same line every time? And I don't like the people who use the same line and they go, hey, my lap times are getting faster. My lap times are getting faster. No, you're just getting more comfortable with it. The reason your lap times, because now instead of doing 2 laps, you've done 50 laps. And I would hope your 50th lap is faster than your second lap. That's just the way it better be. Otherwise, you got some issues.
And especially nowadays, you only get 2, 3 laps of practice.
That's it. Okay. Do I need to practice the main line? I can never go out for practice, line up on the start gate, and I will end up riding the main line easily because I can see it. I don't need to be in it. I already know where it is. I can see it. It's that path that's right there in front of you. You know everybody's going there because it's safe. And by the way, I've jumped that jump and that jump and that jump over there before, so that's no big deal. And so if you've got only 2 or 3 laps, you need to go, okay, I need to first sight my track. I need to be looking for different lines. Second one, I got to change up to something else that I'm not comfortable with in case I have to use it. What if I don't get a good start? What if I'm 8th, 10th off the start? Where am I going to go then? Am I going to follow those guys through there? And so you're comfortable with, I'm going to jump over here and jump way over here on the right-hand side because nobody's doing that. And if I can do that, I can pass a couple of guys right there. But if you don't practice it, you'll never do it. It just won't happen. I wish more people would pay attention to what the riders, the faster riders are doing. I can ask a pretty good B rider, hey, who do you like, Tomac? What do you like about him? Oh, I don't know. He's just good. He's just really fast. Well, what can you tell me that he does that you like? I don't know. He's pretty fast in the corners. Well, what does he do in the corners that makes him that fast? I don't know. When he's going through the corner, can you tell me if he has his finger on the clutch? I think he does. You think he does? What fingers do you have in there? I don't know. I don't have any idea. Can you tell me what his head's doing in the corner? No, not really. I've never paid attention to that. Do you know where his feet are? Not really. If you ever want to be Eli Tomac and you have no idea what he's doing, how are you going to be Eli Tomac? I mean, there's a lesson every day you watch a race with riders of that level. There's a lesson after a lesson after a lesson after a lesson after a lesson. And people don't want to take the time, freeze frame it, back it up, watch it again, and really pay attention to the detail of what they're doing. I mean, it's like, well, if I had his bike, no, dude, don't even throw that if you had his bike crap, because if you had his bike, he's still going to smoke you. You ain't even going to be close. In fact, you couldn't even ride his bike. That's what I'm going to tell you for sure. So they need to pay more attention and learn from these guys that are just, you see them on TV, there's a lesson right there to be learned, not just how fast they are. You know, if you want to be that guy, you got to look like that guy. You got to do what that guy does. And for me, and this is back since, I'm going to say like early 80s till now, the fast guys all have a similar look. The look that they have is aggressive. I can look through a magazine and you can not even tell me who it is. I can go through a magazine and I can tell you whether the guy's a pro and what level he is by looking at the photos. Just by what he's doing. I doubt you've ever seen a picture, and I'm just using Tomac as an example. Now we can talk about sexually. I've never seen a picture of Tomac, a photo that he doesn't look fast. I will guarantee you, I can show you photos of yourself that you don't look fast. So you got to start looking fast, doing the right stuff. That's the only way you're going to get better.
That's pretty much the best advice, you could give us is
Yeah.
look at the guy, look at who your hero is,
And figure out why he's your hero. Why is he your hero?
Rocks in.
Don't tell me it's just because he's winning, because that's stupid.
Yeah, study them. Study where they're sitting, where they're standing, when they're doing anything. You should be able to tell me why they're doing it and where they're doing it, down to the littlest detail.
That's how I found out back when who was it? John Michelle Bale. When John Michelle Bale was in the 250 class, which back then that was a premier class, and he was lower than anybody else over every single jump. And I'm like okay, it's a suspension. And I go, dude, it can't all be suspension, because if it was suspension, then he wouldn't be able to do this other stuff if his suspension was that soft. So like, how is he doing it? Well, because I'm big on video in all the races. And I kept watching this guy, and I'm like going, and I remember the race that I figured it out. It was actually a race in Charlotte, North Carolina, when they were running in the old stadium they used to run in. And this particular jump caught my eye, how much lower it was to the ground than everybody else. And I'd watch him jump, and it's cool because when you're on the floor, you can see the rows of seats. So I saw where everybody else was jumping to, and he was like 3 rows of seats with his wheel lower than everybody else. I'm going, okay, he's lower every jump, every time over that jump. So I started going back, and I'd watched a couple, like I believe it was Bradshaw and maybe Stanton and a couple of guys going over. And I go, he's doing something different. And I'm trying to figure it out from the corner all the way up to it. And I finally realized that right before he hit the face of the jump, he was upshifting 1 more gear. So he hit the jump without so much torque. So the bike kind of blew through it a little bit, and it just kind of got that, because he had the speed. It was more of that, just go through it and let it carry across, where the other guys were going off the top of it. So their bike actually were launching more to get over it. And I was like, God, go. So then I started watching him more. And every chance he had an opportunity, he'd upshift the gear right before the jump to reduce the compression and the rebound when he hit the face of the jump. And I'm like, there you go. There you go. But you got to find those things, because there ain't nobody going to tell you.
And especially nowadays, no one's giving away their tips.
No, we don't want to do that.
Awesome, Gary. Well, man, we really appreciate you taking the time today, Gary. Thanks for being on the show.
Absolutely. All right. Well, been fun. All right. Keep helping some of them young kids out, because I'm not doing much of that. I'm occasionally helping somebody, but kind of like many years as I've been doing it, I'm kind of in that retirement stage. I'm kind of got real heavy on enjoying golf.
Well, you've always been a golf lover.
All right. Well, do good, man. Make them safe.
Thank you.
You betcha.
Thank you.
Bet you guys. Hey, stay safe, huh? Thanks, Carl. Appreciate it, man.
All right. Thanks again, Gary. Cash, did you race this weekend?
Yeah. The
How'd you
track
do?
was good.
How'd you do?
Huh?
How'd you do?
Good.
You win?
Yeah. I got whole shot. But he the first moto I got first, but it was good. But the second moto, it was a little rough, but I didn't take the lines that I'm supposed to do, but he got around me and I got second on the second moto.
Good job. Did you have fun?
Yeah.
What was the most fun part about the weekend?
Ruts, because I had to practice them.
Oh yeah, so you're listening to Gary. You're gonna get out there and ride the hard ruts. Cash, are you racing this upcoming weekend anywhere?
I don't know.
All right. Well, you're looking good there in that Speed Farm shirt.
He's on a need to know basis, and he didn't need to know that.
The jumps were pretty steep, but I like hitting them.
Jumps your favorite, you think?
Yeah. Also the deep ruts.
Well, you got to be fast in the deep ruts because not everyone's going to be going fast in the deep ruts.
Coming up this hill, this outside is really soft. It's like no ruts. It's like really soft.
Were you able to get over there?
I took it, but I still was in front, but I still made it. I still made the track around.
Good. Is that where where you got past?
I don't know. I forgot.
Forgot. Thanks, Cash. We love having you on Moto Talk. Hopefully we'll see you next week. Cav, tell me about your race a little bit.
On the Peanut Moto, I took a whole shot and I was out front. And then I just stayed in front the whole race.
Definitely the way to do it.
Did you learn something from Gary today?
Yeah.
So I know you were having you were crashing on the junior, and you made it all weekend, no crashes.
No.
That's good, because remember what Gary said, if you end up falling down, I mean, you lose a lot of time and your bars might be bent. You got to shake it off. You might have mud all over your glove. So you got to keep it on two wheels and be smart and watch out for the other riders. Gary gave us some really good advice at Loretta's, watch out for those guys, get away from them, and be prepared to take a different line to make some passes, especially if you didn't get a good start.
I'm going to Loretta's.
I know. Are you excited?
Yeah.
You looked happy on the podium.
Yeah.
So you got to work on your podium speech, though. I heard you up there.
Yeah, definitely got to work on is that his dad there with him?
Yeah. His dad sent me a video of your podium speech, Cav. Some good advice from Gary. We got to get more than one word answers, right?
Hey, tell Dad if he's gonna be Loretta's, and if he ends up doing good, he's gonna be on the podium. He needs to learn how to say something, man. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid of the microphone. There ain't no reason to be afraid of the microphone. Get up there and say what you feel. Like when somebody asks you a question, like there's more than that's not a good answer. So tell me about it. I don't want to hear tell me about it. Tell me how the moto went. Tell me how it went from the start to the finish. Tell me what parts you like. Come up with some kind of thing that you can just talk about that you really liked about the race that you just won. But it's not much of an answer.
So I think it's pretty cool that we give them a place to kind of come on here and practice, talking a little bit. So ask some questions, and we're having fun. So big thanks to Cavrick he's the innovator of Moto Talk. He wanted to start a podcast. His dad posted, and I go, well, let's just hop on a Zoom call and let's talk about dirt bikes.
There you go.
We are.
There you go. Hey, but did you tell him if we're going to talk about dirt bikes, you have to talk?
We're working on that, Gary. We're working on that. Right, Cav?
Yeah.
That's why Cav's on the show, and he's my co-host. Before we know it, Cav, you're gonna be hosting the show. You're gonna be saying, "Hey, Carl, do you have any questions?" Right?
Yeah.
All right. Good deal. Thanks, Cav. Thanks, Gary.
Have a good one, guys. Be safe.
Thanks for tuning in to Moto Talk with Gary Bailey. Guess fast or get last.